All right, so here we are in, I believe, race number 7 for Imola, and we're coming off a good weekend.
I told you about the new parts that have come in from the factory, right? Well, they're all fitted and good to go. I hope.
The previous weekend in Miami being a sprint weekend, since Baku was moved later on in the season, and a little bit of rain in practice 3, and then possibly in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. And yeah, so we went back to our other helmet. I don't remember which screen it showed, but we're back to our other helmet, the normal black and white, as we head into this weekend. So we're gonna go ahead and knock out practice and then get to qualifying. All right, so here we are at rainy Imola for qualifying. Our 2 previous times for the hards and mediums, not too far apart. For Q3 we had some rain, or practice 3 we had some rain.
2 minutes left in this
It's our
session,
first
and we're in the
iteration here.
A quick lap, or that's qualifying
As
over for
we're
us.
still sitting P20, and we're coming back across the line for an improvement into Q2, enough for provisional P1. Out of Q1, that's a 2-second time difference between myself and P2 for the rain. And a little snap of oversteer here at the end of the lap. 113, 114, 115 coming across the line up to a 118.031. So we're running pretty good here in Q2 because we didn't set any soft tires. Running back in P15 with our teammate Mick Schumacher. We're gonna cross the line, but it's only good for P15. All right, so yeah, Imola, not feeling too well with Imola. I've always had trouble with this track, and the fact that we didn't get soft tires in practice doesn't help with our pace either. But P15 just behind our teammate Mick Schumacher. That's still 4 tenths back behind him. And yeah, so we're gonna be starting P15 for the race. And all the other top 10 are 116, so we have a lot of ground to cut. We have a lot of ground to make up for Imola, since yeah, we didn't do so well last season. But yeah, so hopefully nothing but improvement from here on out. Let's get to the main event.
Welcome to Imola, the spiritual home of Ferrari. But you don't need me to tell you that. Just look at the red-clad Tifosi in the grandstands. They're ready. Are you ready? For the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola, featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit, and it's only DRS zone. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, Magnussen, Jackson, Mick Schumacher, Johnson, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Joe, Bottas, and Calimea. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. And with me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? They've had to change their gearbox, of course, but it's never a good start to a Grand Prix when right off the bat, you have to contend with a grid penalty.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always better to take some pain now than parking it up halfway through the Grand Prix. Let's just hope they can put that new gearbox to good use and get the results they're looking for.
All right, so here we are, bumped up one position with our teammate, and we're starting side by side. So hopefully we can. Oh wow, they're wanting us to do a non-stop race. What is going on here? Okay, if they really think that's gonna happen, we'll have to wait and see. As yeah, I guess we're running mediums to the end of the race. I don't know what is going on here with these numbers. It doesn't look right. 4 stops, 2 stops. It's not. I don't know what's going on here. That's yeah, so we'll figure this out, see what's going on. I don't know if it's a bug, but we'll have to wait and see. So we'll get back to you guys with the start of the race.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, as you guys can see, alongside the race strategy being messed up, you see the pit strategies. They're kind of glitching out with our tire issue. And if you remember seeing the very beginning of the formation lap, everybody, and I mean everybody, is starting out on the softs. So it's not just us. As our 5 red lights are on and we're off next to our teammate Nick Schumacher. And I believe that's Aiden Jackson. No, that's the Haas off to a bad start. We get caught up behind the Williams there of Ocon, going 3 wide just for a second there. Going on the wide end of turn, I believe, 2 and 3. Giving way to our teammate Nick Schumacher. We're back up into P14. We see some side-by-side up there, but no position changes as of yet coming through lap 1. Will be the Alfa Romeo Haas. Losing position to Aiden Jackson there in the Connor Sport. As we're coming to the uphill section of the track. And yeah, not so good so far. We're still in the same position that we were. But yeah, so we're slotting in. A little bit of a mistake there to our downhill section. As our old teammate, Logan Sargent, still right there behind us as we hit that double right-hander for the uphill section before the Sector 3 chicane, or I think it's the end of Sector 2 here. So you can see we're at the end of a train for the midfield, and then the other train of everybody else in the back of the pack as we're coming back down the hill to about a second gap between myself and Schumacher for lap 1. And yeah, so pretty up in the air about now with the soft tires. See if we can go in for a 1 stop for the rest of this race to the mediums. But we're going to be moving on to towards the end of lap 2, I believe. No, this is about Sector 2, lap 2. We're on board with Red Bull's Max Verstappen coming up the hill ahead of the Ferrari. Takes a little bit too much curb and causes a yellow flag there in Sector 2. Losing out in position, there we go. You can see the rest of the drivers, the Connor Sport of Callie Mayer there ahead, as that's going to be halfway through lap 2. So an early yellow flag in this race as he's back there in P20. You can see the big train of cars that we're a part of here as we're P13, free position from Max Verstappen. Nobody has yet to come into the pits, as we have a lot of ground to cover to try and pass our teammate Mick Schumacher. But moving on to the end of lap 3, we go to make our move against our teammate. We have DRS, and hopefully he can make up some positions as well. But you see Ocon and the Williams ahead of Piastri now up in P8. We make that position up on our teammate Mick Schumacher. And yeah, another train of 4 drivers. So Ocon, Piastri, Jackson, and Magnussen ahead of us now here on lap 4. And now we're looking to make some moves. So managed to move Magnussen a little bit, and I thought about making a move, but it was too dangerous to try to make a move. So we use our late brakes tactic to make that position up there on the outside of that turn to the uphill section, starting of Sector 2. Now we have Aiden Jackson up in P10 to try to make a move on, but we go wide. Magnussen taking that position back as we come around here. Now, we don't get that good of a launch on Magnussen, but we do end up managing to pass him after the chicane. But shortly after that, Piastri and Ocon coming into the pits for an early stop. So, seems like they're going to be coming in for what seems to be a two-stop race. As we're getting ever so closer to Jackson. So we're up in P9, Magnussen P10, Schumacher just outside of the points there in P11. We're only about a quarter of the way through the race. Lap 6 is finally when we're able to catch up to Jackson. Some of the other drivers coming in for a two-stop. What projected to be a two-stop, maybe a one-stop, as we make our move on Jackson. And being very gentle on these tires as we're starting to feel the wear and tear as we did make a move. Now up in a P6. Lap 9 now is when we're deciding to come in on these soft tires. Jackson, Schumacher ahead of both Hasses of Magnussen and Hulkenberg. So we're coming in, and Schumacher is going to be fighting against Jackson as well. So Hamilton, Perez, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly are top 5. Schumacher making that position up against Jackson. The two Hasses and Logan Sargent, they're in P10 as we swap over to a set of mediums to run to the end of the race. As, pit windows kind of splitting in the middle. Going to be about 11, 12 laps. I think 13 or so on these mediums. If we can, 12 or 13 on these mediums. If we can run them all the way to the end of the race, that would be great. Except for some upcoming pit stops that will obviously change our positions. Moving on a few laps later with Valtteri Bottas coming onto the main straight, and he has a plume of smoke, so he's going to have an engine failure. So that's going to be our second yellow flag, and this is actually going to be a full-on safety car. So there are the two Red Bulls of Perez and Verstappen. Perez in the front. I believe that was Ocon. And we're going to be behind that situation, because Bottas is the only DNF so far in this race. And we're going to be swapping over to our free set of stops, so we have a lot of ground to cover. And hoping that this safety car comes through and helps us out. And with other pit stops yet to happen, we're going to have to wait to see. But lap 18 now, we've caught up to the safety car train. You can see we're sitting there in P13. Bottas out. Russell behind us. Callie Mayer ahead of us in the Connor Sport. Magnussen, Zhou, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Jackson, and Schumacher. Our teammate Schumacher up into P6. So Sonoda, Ocon, Verstappen, Piastri, Sainz. All these guys in the back have been making those extra stops as we're coming over to the safety car perspective of the front runners. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. And he had a good performance as we're swapping over to our perspective on this race restart. And we have some ground to catch up to Callie Mayer. So we kind of left off guard as we try to catch up to him. So we basically go wide on the late tires. We try to put as much wear and tear into those tires before we caught up to the pack. But you can see how far ahead they are and how big the train of... You can see how big the train is as we make a move. There's a blue flag marker ahead of us. And I had to double check, and it was actually Sonoda who was up ahead, caught in the mix of all of the drivers. You can see the blue flag marker there. We have the Alfa Romeo Haas behind us and the Sauber of Zhou. So we're getting blue flag markers ahead of them. Little snap of oversteer there off the restart for lap 20. Have to regain that ground a little bit on Zhou Guanyu and the Sauber. So that snap of oversteer is going to basically settle that for now as we move on to towards the end of lap 21. So we managed to catch up to Zhou. We have DRS for this final lap. Hulkenberg ends up going into the pits, most likely for damage. So that gives us the free position up in the P10. So we can fight for this position against Magnussen. Magnussen's already over a second and a half behind us, but we're sitting in P10. We're going to try to make up a position here against Zhou Guanyu and the Sauber. But we're going to have to wait as we're coming through Sector 1. Hit these corners a lot better than we could. But we have Zhou in the Alfa in the Sauber, to make the move there on the chicane, and that's our old teammate of Logan Sargent ahead of us in the Williams. And I believe that is Aiden Jackson up ahead and our teammate Mick Schumacher. So 6, 7, 8, and 9, I believe. So we're in the points. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty good race. We're going to try to make a position here on the Williams and get a good launch out of this last corner. But we got pretty close, but we couldn't quite get it. As that little snap there at the end before we straightened out. But that's going to be good enough.
All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
They take the checkered flag then here in Imola in what has been another outstanding Grand Prix. Tell me, Ant, how do they manage to achieve this win?
I think we'll chalk this one up to a deft touch on the brake pedal. That's allowed them to challenge down the inside into the braking zones, and ultimately, if you do that often enough, you end up winning the race. It was great to watch as well though, wasn't it? Forget strategy, forget tyre management. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned scrap?
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. The gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. Well, after an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Well, there was a lot of incredible driving out there today, but if I had to pick someone, it's got to be Sergio Perez. Fantastic driving.
Let's move on to the constructors. It was a tough race for our championship leaders who lose ground at the top of the table. Meanwhile, AlphaTauri's strong weekend allows them to continue their march up the table. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
All right, I don't know. Yeah, you can look here by the race director. George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen. These guys are all... I don't know what happened. I didn't touch my cheat table at all. I just loaded into the weekend. We weren't having issues till third practice. Nobody wanted to set some times in third practice because of the rain. And then as soon as you guys saw there at the beginning of the race, our race strategy stuff was messed up. So I don't know if it's necessarily like an update issue or if it's a cheat table issue with the with a weekend override, because I haven't hit the weekend override at all. I haven't touched that, but hopefully we won't have that same issue in the next episode. But on the top side, Sergio Perez winning another race, Lando Norris on the podium again, Lewis Hamilton able to get some more points for Mercedes for the constructor standings, because they're now 17 points ahead of Red Bull, and then we're up there in P5 just ahead of Alpine and behind McLaren, as well as Mick Schumacher scoring some points. Mick Schumacher scoring 8 points today, myself scoring 2, and then Logan Sargent, our teammate from last season, finally able to score some points there for P8, so 4 points for him. And Aiden Jackson in the Connor Sport finishing P7 for a total of 6 points. Callie Mayer, Kevin Magnussen just outside of the points. So hopefully we won't have that issue again in the next episode. But if we do, we'll have to end up dealing with that. So see you guys in the next episode.